Hello, we're group number nine. So it consists of me, Mark Kisela from Hungary, University of Pécs. I'm responsible for the sustainability aspect. My colleagues, Brett from Sweden, responsible for the information search, and Shinori from Finland, responsible for the marketing part.
And my name is Walter. I'm responsible for the strategy part.
And I would like to give my word to my colleague Brett to give more information.
Yes, thank you so much, Mark. Looking at the data, China has traditionally been a strong manufacturing hub with large factory clusters and efficient logistics. However, there are also growing risks. Labor cost has increased, and there are concerns about labor standards and reputational risks for European companies. But there are also geopolitical tensions and long supply chains that can create disruptions. And because of this, we also explored alternative in Eastern Europe, such as, for example, Serbia. And some R&D data that I collected also to add some data to that. Silicon Valley hosts some of the world's leading technology companies and universities, including Stanford University and UC Berkeley. And this also gives companies access to top engineering talent and research partnerships, and also venture capital. For a drone company working with AI, software, and robotics, this innovation ecosystem can be extremely valuable. And now the word to the CMO.
Okay, so as a CMO, I view culture as the key driver of innovation. And in Silicon Valley, employees feel empowered to share ideas, take risks, and iterate it rapidly. In contrast, hierarchical structures in France may slow decision making, which can limit our ability to compete in fast-moving drone technology. Therefore, placing R&D in Silicon Valley supports both innovation and creative problem solving. So when it comes to the cultural consideration in manufacturing, actually, we considered Serbia, which is a Western Europe country in non-EU, as the country. And from a cultural perspective, Serbia aligns more closely with French business practices, which allows better oversight and quality control. Communication is more direct than China, and managers can coordinate operations without excessive delays due to the time differences and everything. And Serbia also minimizes intellectual property risks and geopolitical uncertainties while still offering competitive labor costs. So I prefer, according to those categories and those ideas, I prefer Serbia over China. So when we talk about the cultural insights, from a marketing standpoint, our location strategy sends strong signals. So Silicon Valley demonstrates that Drone Evo is a technology leader, while manufacturing in Serbia ensures our brand retains that European quality image. So by carefully considering cultural factors, we reduce friction and attract more talent and strengthen our global brand credibility. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to managing cultural and strategic risks, we have to reduce risks through cultural insights. So as a CMO, I focus not only on brand and innovation, but and operational risks. So by choosing Serbia over China, we reduce potential misunderstandings and protect our intellectual property. And locating R&D in Silicon Valley ensures access to top talent while maintaining innovation standards. Developing clear communication protocols across locations allows us to bridge cultural gaps, ensuring teams collaborate effectively and strategic objectives are met, I guess. Yes, it is.
Now from a strategic perspective, let's start with the question whether the R&D department should maintain in France or in Silicon Valley. We'll use the OLI paradigm for this. Looking at the O of ownership, we see that EvoX has very valuable resources which are intangible and difficult to replicate, meaning there's an ownership advantage. We can move on to the L for location, which will be the focus of this analysis. Silicon Valley is obviously a top-tier innovation ecosystem with many top engineers and universities. Especially when looking at agglomeration economics theory, we see that high-density clusters provide knowledge spillover, as well as faster innovation and specialized talent, which is of course a big benefit to Silicon Valley. Then, looking at internalization advantage, we know that R&D is very sophisticated, and therefore this knowledge should be protected and kept internal, which defends a subsidiary. Now whether we should manufacture in China or in a non-EU Eastern European country, such as Serbia as mentioned before. For this we'll use the cage distance framework to compare the distances between the countries. Looking at the cultural dimension, we see that Serbia is slightly closer, especially in terms of ethics, values, and norms, as Mark will mention a bit later. Looking at the administrative distance, there is higher political risk in China. And looking at geographic distance, obviously China is further away from France. Looking at economic distance, perhaps the most interesting factor, we see that China has larger economies of size, lower income, and the manufacturing cost is also more efficient. Labor costs are also relatively low, but the same can be said about Serbia to a lower extent. So in short, China might perhaps be more efficient and cost efficient, but coordination will be difficult due to higher distance in almost all dimensions. Therefore, Serbia has the best balance between coordination and cost.
All right, thank you. So when it comes to the sustainability goals, we have three goals that we have to keep in mind and that are the most achievable. So that would be numbers 9, 12, and 8, industry, innovation, and infrastructure. So when it comes to this, we are basically saying that this company can build some new infrastructure in the country that they come in. And it also supports more yeah, workplaces for local people. And since we're a European company, we try to ensure that all the European laws are observed. And when it comes to our production, we also really care about the way we manage the stuff, the way we produce things, so it wouldn't bring any harm to the environment. So the other two things that are really important are sustainable goals number 16, peace and justice and strong institutions. So the reason why we chose Serbia and not any other Eastern European country is that we try to avoid some military complications. So for example, Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus cannot be chosen since there is a military conflict and sanctions. And as for climate change, when we compare China and Serbia, we can clearly see that the distance of shipping is much larger for China. And by our estimate calculations, we can actually see that the carbon emissions from shipment would be around 80 to 90% lower if we take it from Serbia to France rather than from China. Also, the very important and ethical thing that we should pay attention to is transparency and enforcement of labor law. So Chinese labor law is not as close to the European, but Serbian is. So if we want to avoid some complications, and there were some reported incidents in China of using child labor and involuntary labor, so we just want to avoid that. For that reason, we would like to choose Serbia because we've never heard of any incidents of such kind. Okay, so in the conclusion, Serbia ensures cost efficiency, lower carbon emissions, and better alignment with the EU labor law enforcement. So overall, it gives us more operational stability. And as for the Silicon Valley, which was the first question, we think that it strengthens innovation and global talent access because Silicon Valley is basically a hub for all the talents, not just in the US, but around the world. And also it gives us access to the American market, which is very influential. And the US is the first economy in the world. So we can get even a greater part in the market and expand much more. So thank you all for the attention.